Hello, this is Renee, and welcome to my channel, A Lot to Tell, or if it's TikTok, TikTok. When I mentioned about my sister being on ventilators and that when I asked them to remove her off the heavy sedation, there was something I had mentioned on the first two, don't, before you pull the plug. When they released, let me make sure I get this clear. When they took her off the ventilators and realized that she was breathing on her own as well as opening her eyes, things drastically changed. She was in ICU bed 11 from November the 5th to a few days. And when the doctor got upset with me when I told him to, take her off the heavy sedation, and she started opening her eyes as well as breathing on her own, she no longer needed that machine, they took her out of the ICU unit. And they started putting her on floors that I considered dangerous because she was in a vegetative state. And when you're in that kind of state, she couldn't move her arms. She couldn't speak. She couldn't say anything. Nothing. So there have been a couple of times that I paid a visit to the hospital almost every single day until some days when I had to work, and then it would be later on in the evening. They just kept changing nurses. It was always somebody new, and I never understood that because I thought they were short on staff. So it was kind of weird that she always had a different nurse. I don't mean to talk all over my head or what I'm trying to say, but this really, really, truly bothers me every time I think about it. And I thank God he's holding me together, because all I really want to do every time I go over it is cry. But I know that God wants me to tell people what I've seen and what exactly happened with my own eyes to my sister, which I couldn't even believe. So there have been times when I went into her room, the door is closed. The curtain is pulled all the way around her bed. I'm looking at workers, nurses, in the hallway, laughing, joking, and on their phones. So by the time I walked into the room, I see my sister gagging. I could not find the suction straw. I saw the suction machine. I just couldn't find the straw. And I did everything that I could, searching and looking for it, and still couldn't find it. And so all I did was lifted my sister up. I hate she had to swallow that crap, but I didn't know what else to do. So when I called the nurse into her room, I questioned about the solitude. Her in a room, she wasn't even sharing a room with another patient. She was just in the corner by herself with the curtain closed. That's dangerous to me. So when I asked the nurse to come in, she said she was the charge nurse for a day shift, and had the nerve to tell me, oh, the suction straw is over here. It was behind the suction machine where I couldn't even see it. And then she looks at me and say, well, if there's an emergency, all she has to do is press the alarm button, and actually pointed it out to me. And I looked at her and I said, how is she supposed to use that alarm button for an emergency when she can't talk and she can't move her hands or arms or her legs? She's just laying there. So the nurse looks at me in a weird manner. And I told her, is there any way at all, if y'all going to have her back here in this room, put a TV monitor in there? Where they can watch her. She can't do nothing for herself. Somebody needs to watch her. Why is she way towards the back? I said, y'all need to move her closer towards the nursing station. I don't understand why they didn't keep my sister in intensive care unit. Because I saw, what did the doctor tell me? Oh, she wasn't critical anymore. So that's why they moved her to another floor. You do not call a person not being able to move and touch anything or call for help. None of that. You don't call that critical where she needs to be watched. It's like he got upset and mad with me because she didn't stay in ICU and just decided, you know what, we're going to put her on another floor, which was more dangerous. They should have kept her in ICU. She could still breathe on her own. She can still open her eyes, but she couldn't do anything else. I'm looking at people in the same unit, intensive care unit. They're eating with their hands. Their family members are in there. They're talking to them. They're able to move their arms. I don't know what else. I just passed by. And you know, when you hear people talking, sometimes you glance. It's not just to be nosy. It's just to glance. But I'm looking at that. And then some of them walk out on the floors, you know, with the IV attached to their arm. And they walking with this pole. So you telling me that my sister did not deserve to be in ICU when she couldn't do none of those things that the people were in ICU were doing? Feeding themselves, talking, walking, moving. So when they finally moved her to the front towards the nurse's station, every time I went there, the door was closed. I said, can y'all keep the door open, please? And they finally brought in a monitor. The nurse asked me, do you want us to put a monitor in the room? Why are you asking me that when that's your job to do that for patient safety? So no, they didn't like the idea that I was telling them how to do their own job, because I do not appreciate you leaving my sister in rooms like that. That is dangerous, and nobody is watching and seeing what she's doing. The monitor now is in front of her bed in a different room. And I told them, I said, the only time that monitor needs to be off is respect to her privacy when you're cleaning her and you're changing her. But other than that, when y'all leave out the room, please leave the door open. Please make sure the monitor is on. And later on, they moved her to another room. I have no idea why they kept doing this. And they didn't even tell me that they moved her. So I'm getting in this panic mode, like, where's my sister? And I had someone at the front desk tell me, oh, what is your sister's name again? Oh, we don't know where she is. You work there. How could you not know where a patient is located? And then when I finally found her, same old. In a room by herself. But this time, they took the monitor away. And there's a nurse on the outside working on the computer. And she always asks me the question when I'm leaving out of the room, are you coming back? And sometimes I'll say yes. Sometimes I don't say nothing, because you don't need to know when I'm coming back. You need to be on your guard just in case I come back. Not being what they call me, disruptive, mean, harsh. But that's my sister. How would you feel if somebody was treating your sister like that? And you feel like I shouldn't get upset about it? You know, they're always saying we're combative, we're this and we're that. Because most of the people that I talk to was not of my race. I had an attitude. So you wanted me to say, oh, my sister's in the room by herself and she's gagging on home spit. And there's nobody there watching her. Can y'all please just watch her for me? I shouldn't even have to say that. Regardless of how I say it, I should not have had to say that. It is their job. Like they lie, the policy is to protect the patients and address family issues. Not of you telling them what to do. So the reason why God allows me to say what I say on these channels is to educate. You have a right to protect your family member. You have a right to discuss and ask questions with these doctors to prevent abuse and neglect and the worst. I had to go through the worst for me to get on here and start talking. Years ago, a lot to tell, the channel been open, but I stopped talking. I started doing the podcast with Spotify and Apple. And then I got away from that for a while. But I held in too much for far too long. Because I figured things would have changed by now. I mean, my mom died from a double dose of insulin. My husband that was beating and abusing me, he finally died from advanced Parkinson's disease because a dentist gave him the wrong medication. It was 25 milligrams for acne, not for an infected tooth that caused 6 lesions on the brain. And that caused abuse more towards me. Thank God, not to our children, but it happened to me. The things got worse, and it got worse. And he just died a few years ago. He wasn't that old. That's why I be saying, it's like these legal policies gives doctors, nurses, and everybody else the right to make mistakes and kill us, whether it was intentional or an accident. Either way it goes, you need to be held accountable for the wrongs that y'all do. Don't they do it to people that rob the bank, steal, do all kinds of things? They get caught. They pay the consequences. You telling me if you got a title, you can get away with murder and everything else? I got to do what God wants me to do. That's to keep my eyes and my ears open. And I tell my family the same thing. We have got to start not just going with our family members to the hospital, but we got to make sure that these doctors are qualified to do what they say they went to college for, universities for, medical schools for, got the title for. You shouldn't be making no mistakes. There's no such thing as continuing medical education. It's like you're still studying us as an experiment, whether it's medically treated or it's surgical. A lot of people have had surgery, came out of surgery, suffering from a whole lot of things. But because we signed those papers, that was the reason why I didn't want to sign the papers for the PEG. This feeding tube that y'all wanted to put into my sister looked dangerous because she was still healing. Now I'm seeing huge blisters all on her arm. The tape fell loose one day. I didn't go in there looking for nothing wrong with my sister, but because they weren't listening to me, I started taking pictures. They say we ain't supposed to do that. Oh, no, I'm taking pictures of the evidence of what y'all are doing to my sister. And the Adult Protection Services needs to know about this. But, of course, I found out the Adult Protection Agency Services cannot investigate people in the hospital. So then I need my own proof. Because I'm looking at the neglect that y'all doing to my sister. And then when I asked them to transfer her to another hospital, they wouldn't even do it. To a hospital that specializes in stroke victims. Please be aware of your surroundings and what's going on. Hospitals, dentists, clinics. Some people say that these workers do their job because they're underpaid. They don't understand what underpaid means. I had to take care of my children, making $6 an hour, as long as it was a job. We couldn't survive on that, but I had to make it stretch. And when I did my job, I did the very best that I could. I didn't want to be lazy. And when I wanted to be an RN, of course it didn't work out that way. I wound up being a certified nurse's aide. But I always wanted to be a registered nurse because I actually care about people. What happened to the care? I understand we need money to survive. But do that mean we mistreat people that need our help? What we got these licenses for? It was wrong. I ain't gonna never say it was right. It's too many people in my family that has been injured and hurt due to the neglect and abuse of people that are medically supposed to be qualified. Don't forget, I told y'all, a dentist hurt my mouth. That's why my mouth is uneven now. I'm talking to y'all because I don't care about my mouth. I care about reaching out to so many people and letting them know what's going on, because we see so much happening in the front of us, but we don't really know and see what's going on behind the scenes when it comes to our family.